country with large parts. To design, establish, and deliver a highly specialized supply chain for the distribution of life-saving medicines to the rural and Tier 2 and Tier 3 and below towns. We did hear about how Prashant drones were being used in some African countries and how this could be a game changer. We invite this panel to discuss the challenges of last mile delivery.
Thank you, Girish. And welcome my fellow panelists for the panel, Gaurav, Vijay, Sapna, and Masood. All right, so all of us are here. It's a pleasure to have you all in this panel of the panel. Last mile delivery has different connotations. Some people think reaching the bottom of the pyramid markets in rural India, reaching the doorstep, reaching unreachable places. We'll have a very broader view of last mile. And also look at the emergence of new players in terms of online players, in terms of technology that's deliveries, constraints of last mile deliveries, and also, one thing that is very important in the process of visibility in the last miles. And I've been a big fan of MapmyIndia right since I saw them as a co-panelist somewhere in 2016, presenting at the rural marketing. What really was interesting was to see that somebody is able to map the whole of India in a big way. Mapping brings visibility, helps you build agility, that brings resilience. And if you can map the last mile, and as you saw in the other panel, mapping was an exercise. People didn't talk about it, but they talked about this. Second very important element of the last mile delivery, I was looking at some data by, I don't recollect the source, a week back, and I saw that the postal codes that are reached by online is amazing. 99% of the postal codes in one form or another are being reached by e-commerce. When I looked at the little pharma part of it, 58, depending upon the reasons, the 4 reasons. That means there is a huge accessibility to the last mile through the e-commerce, which throws up a lot of challenge of using e-commerce as a vehicle and maybe omni-channel this thing. The challenge also is for pharma companies in the sense that most e-commerce delivery are delivered by the Amazons and the Flipkarts of the world. They almost have 85% of the delivery confined to themselves. They are the new, they subsume even the other 3PLs in the process as we move ahead. And as the share of the online increases and last mile connectivity becomes easier and door to door easier with them, I think there is going to be a phenomenal change in the direction that last mile delivery and logistics in itself will take. So I think that's a future. There are also issues of logistics, reaching the way it is, the way pharma companies, the newcomers that are coming. People say that there's a lot of regulatory issues, but I think the way the companies like Cyberbox or Tata One MG, I think, or even Gaurav represents Reliance. I think Reliance can do anything to become the largest retail format in last miles. I think they have done amazingly well in Reliance Digital, where their next commerce approach has reached the villages and tier 4 cities. India has around 4,000 tier 4 cities, that's blocks, which we call it in simple geography terms. So this is something that is changing very fast. What we do is that I'm going to keep this as a town hall. I'm not going to moderate much. Open it up for all of you for your views. Each one has a different directions. I'll just let you know the direction. So we start with Mr. Masood. And Masood, what are your views? You represent Olympic. What are your views on in terms of reaching the last mile logistics? What are the challenges that we face? One, normal challenges that was pre-COVID, and during the COVID, what has been the dramatic change that has been happening?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I represent Olympic Pharmaceutical. I head distribution logistics. Basically, pre-COVID, things were absolutely very smooth. Things were going as per the autopilot mode, and everything was been very, very planned way. Right off stock into the retailers. Broken all the chains, and that it was a real difficult time for the entire supply chains when it came to the CFAs, all the supply chain, in our facet. But the most important supply chain are the end suppliers, which are the CFAs basically. You see the way they have come up with various innovative ideas, and the way they have supported in the entire supply chain is enormous. And we as a company, initially when we realized the importance of these CFAs, we had immediately called a meeting with all the CFAs, asking them that come around and how are we. And there were many ideas which came from them itself. Right when the lockdown was there was no movement of trucks from an idea saying that various stock points or to various stockists and chemists. And then when this kind of CFA is working for various companies, like 4-5 companies they were handling too. So they clubbed entire consignment of 4-5 companies, and they have sent up to the last mile, up to that particular stockist level, or even to the extent of at the retailer counters also. So they were really very important channel partners in the entire supply chain, where they took a very good initiative, and not. We had one round of meeting since it was Zoom, so we could touch upon around 100 stockists, 100 important stockists, and we could tell them, what are the difficult times which is going to be ahead, what kind of orders they have to place, what kind of weekly orders they're going to place. So all this planning by the company and all this particularly initiative what we took actually made possible for us to make a supply chain very easy. In fact, in our central stock point, the manpower was not allowed to come to that particular CSP location. Then with the coordination with all the pharma members, in that why can't we provide a separate passes to this kind of manpower? Why can't we go to the government or to the state government, approach them and allow them to enter, because it's really essential drugs, which is very, very important in spite of being a lockdown. Because initially there was a lot of confusion, when it came to lockdown. There was no clear cut. It was being told to the service provider or to the CFAs or to the CFA staff. But then with the coordination of the entire industry came together, we were regularly in touch, our pharma, even back to stockists. Even the stockists played a very vital role, because at least we were working from home, but the people who are actually in the actual field, you say the stockists, the retailers, they were to attend the entire 1.5 years, from last 1.5 years or 18 months or 19 months, they were the people, they were never away from their stock point or away from the stockist point or away from the CSP, CNF. So they made visible for the entire supply chain, and they also gave us the support, giving us the entire making the supplies at the end level up to the customer. So I think, we should appreciate even the channel partners in the entire supply chain and train them to take care of all the activities. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Traditional supply chain in pharma into picture. Let me move to Gaurav. And it's very interesting to learn from your own student here, sitting on the panel. So it happens that, the child is the father of the man. So it's similar. He has been a student of mine, and it will be good to learn from you, Gaurav. And you have worked into a traditional setup, reaching last miles in Cipla, now into a so-called retail and last mile framework. What do you think are the challenges of the two channels? Because if I look at it from a very conceptual perspective, I find that the whole channel is also a last mile channel, because it reaches the last mile. It has its own advantages, and there's channels that are emerging, new platforms that are emerging, new formats rather are emerging. Challenges of the modern retail within pharma.
Right. Sure. Thank you, Dr. So, just before answering this, very quickly, if I take 2 steps back and look at the entire supply chain, first of all, so it starts from demand sensing, demand planning, giving that consensus demand to supply planning. There is a lead time for each activity. As you mentioned in the previous organization, there is a lead time for procurement of raw materials, APIs, excipients, and then finally a lead time for manufacturing. After these, right from planning to manufacturing, then comes the last mile delivery. And anywhere, if any of these elements miss or kind of TATs or lead times, the entire I would say expectation comes on mile delivery, which is the so-called logistics. Where I want coming to what you asked, both in terms of the channel behavior or customer expectation, as we see in retail. And initially, you rightly mentioned also that Reliance, being one of the largest retailer and pioneer in this, both from the geography they cover, as well as the volumes they cover. So there is a definite expectation from the customer to deliver in the shortest possible times, the turnaround times, which is again going to come as a heavy expectation. I can to divide some of this, I would say, pressures or some of these expectations. We have come up with omni channels, and when I'm saying what I mean is a person, say, all the respected panel members sitting at home or the audience sitting at home, just groceries, etc., to their home. It is purely B2C, which will be delivered at your home. To add to it, again, perspective of giving more convenience to the customer, he can choose. So he can then pick it up as per his convenience, at his convenience of the time also. So you need not be there at your home. You may be coming from your office on your way, and you can pick the delivery from the smart point. It's an of the distribution channel, and say the thinking that we or possibilities that we are trying to amalgamate all of these omni channels. And more importantly, as we go forward, very clearly the expectation from the customer is to deliver on the very few hours, or at least on the same day. So that's expectation that increasingly coming from the tax, and then from the management side, you always have an expectation on the cost. So to balance or marry both of these in terms of code at time, you have to do a lot of I would say strategy. I'm sure we will all together share insights how to better this. So yes, looking forward to kind of a great insightful discussion on the same. Thank you.
For those and Vijay, what according of last miles, and how is the landscape changing due to technology?
In the supply chain. Okay. Yeah, I would say last mile. I would say challenges wise. I would say if I talk about the present situation, if you talk about visibility wise, okay, availability wise, the last mile delivery basically it constitute more of a I would say fragmented players. I would say you would not have many players. You will have majorly players who are local there and trying to make sure that they are delivering it. Typically, in a pharma supply chain, I think what I've been exposed to, okay, most of the time for the last mile, we have a carting agent who's associated with small timers players. So you goes to the hub, and from there it actually goes across to the nearby locations, to the stockist or to the interior place. Okay, in the entire chain you don't have visibility. Okay, having said that, I would say post GST and with the emergence of e-commerce players, okay, I think this landscape has been changing, and I think organized prior to GST almost in every state, or even like within the state, like there were 2 or 3 locations where we had our warehouse deputies with regard visibility with regard to the TAD turnaround time or the lead time that we did for 150 kilometers is what last mile was seen. But I think today to even 500 kilometers or more, e-commerce is looking at more. I think in the pharma sector, this is yet to happen, though there are certain pockets where things have started moving in that direction. Okay. Other challenge, what I see is in many cases, if I look at the pharma end-to-end channel management, okay, so we have depots or CFAs and we have our distribution. We will have material is going to get ready. What kind of information is actually also going to my what kind of visibility is also being given to my last mile transporters saying that, okay, these are the lots, what kind of truck types are required, whether my load is 500 cases or 100 cases. I think can that information flow immediately to him? And yes, technology can help here. Okay, at the same performance, look at the warehousing performance, saying that an order comes in the morning, whether we have removed it. I think that speed, I would say technology can definitely help you track that. At the same time, you have lead times. How many times he has reached on that particular lead time? Now, I think Rakesh ji also talked about agility. Now, we can't have only one type of transportation. You can have the courier mode, you can have the express mode, you can have the air mode. I think all kind of solutions have to be there. I think whenever I think the pandemic hit, nobody talked about, okay, saying that where the cost is. The prescription pharmacist, okay, or if the at the chemist or at the counter or at any of the replace, our products would be replaced. So as a logistic or a supply chain professional, one should ensure that the reliability that within the warehouse or the CFA way of monitoring, I think that is more important in terms of, I think there I would say technology definitely will aid it. Okay. Having said that, the other way going forward would be to also look at, I think this is going forward, is to also, like, if we have inventory visibility, do we take stock and sales statement? But let's say if we have devise a system where we know on a daily basis, okay, what is the stock lying at our stockist or the distributor's end, and if we can replenish them on timely basis, I think that's really done, okay, rather than hush hush. I think you will actually go on month ends to also collect orders. I think the products, but also making sure that I think we are also supporting and closing the loop with our stockist and distributor. Yeah, and that's where I would say, I think Gaurav spoke about demand. I think the supply chain team needs to also be closely connected with what's happening in the demand, what can go. Typically in the supply chain, I would say for pharma, the scenarios are made to stock. Okay, you will carry 30 to 45 days of stocks in your depots or your CFAs, and another 15 to 30 days of stocks would be under manufacturing. Okay, but do you know what's available at the stockist level? I think if that is available, because I think you will be more proactive to take some actions and also build your actions on your last mile deliveries, whether to go on express, whether to go on a normal mode, because stocks are there. And you can not only look at the deliverables, but you can also look at how I can also optimize and save cost as well. So I think looking at it into an end-to-end perspective, technology will definitely aid, but just implementing technology for the heck of it will not help. That's
perfect. Perfect. I think again, one thing comes very clearly is that it is the organization and the business end to end, and agility is very different. I think there is a need for even pharma companies to realize what should be made to stock and what should be made to order also. And made to stock, like the pharma, day one delivery. I think is from the FMCG part, we need to really look at them. Secondly, can't we lower the lead time? You know, as we talked about, MRP is a long lead time. Vijay was talking about it early. Lower the lead time. Bring element of agility in the lead time. Decouple the lead times. What do it in demand? Visibility, you're creating agility and you're creating some amount of resilience. Planning needs to move a little further in pharma. I think we are planning blind, because if your distribution system has this kind of inventory at each and every level, you are prone to a mean 300 standard deviation, 227, and a stock of 100, 1,000. And I think units, I'm not giving any value. We are, and hence adopting modern approaches becomes very important. Also, before getting into some more technology, it is also important that technology is or integrated business plan where everybody understands the technology and everybody uses technology. Once you use technology, procurement guy, your manufacturer, your last mile delivery players whom you partner, and planning and distribution, all of them will see the same schedules, and part planning would become much easier because and on the one forecasting. A lot of people say forecasting is that we did discuss in the morning with another panel, but I'd say you need to have some forecast. Suppose it's COVID, you come down 65% below 219 level, say that. And maybe you think some changes may happen, add to that. And then that becomes your basis for forecasting and planning. You add your demand signals from your channel, as Sapna was saying, or Masood was saying. Pack those signals. Look at the outside in signal map from MapmyIndia. So how is it increasing, the red, yellow, and the green zones? Based on that, you define the geographical forecast and the amount that's needed. Put that into your technology, bring resiliency and work. I think is the one where most, and last mile, if you look at rural in India, who knows what lies where at what temperature? If any one company knows that, I would be happy. It's a blind distribution channel. Post the CNF and distributor is blind. Your client is distributor, and sometimes the client is distributor, MapmyIndia does not help in far. Why? Because we don't know what's happening. And I think at 45 degrees centigrade, a drug in UP, where I come from, a village, I buy it, may not be the same drug I'm buying it, what was manufactured by LNB. So this is a critical challenge with help of technology. So I'll put it to Masood because he comes from distribution, he's passionate about distribution. What are those technology changes? Not only maps, but what is the change that we need?
I agree to Mr. Vijay that tying up and integrating from the stockist to the CFAs and the visibility of the stock statement and secondary statement. But one more point which we want to integrate is basically a chemist to stockist. Or stockist in there and we are to the stockist level. But beyond that, whether it goes to a sub-stockist, whether it goes to a retailer, or whether it goes to some kind of Me Too doctors or whatever. So where the stock is lying further on. Because if you see, we are only calculating the inventory up to a CFA level and the stockist level. Beyond that, there is no visibility. And rightly said, at what temperature they are storing and what it is a asbestos store or it's a proper way of, you don't know. Into this industry from last 30 years, and I'm always saying that whatever temperature you control at your level for just first 15 days or 30 days, beyond that there is 365 days is lying in the market. Your stock is absolutely under. We don't know. So integrating them to knowing the importance of storing and knowing the importance of product and its availability and what sort it has from that point. And I would. How can you map this from the retailer to the stockist to the CFA to the factory? If you can have integrate this kind of thing through MapmyIndia, I think it will be one of the best things which the pharma industry would reveal. This kind of technology. So this kind of visibility up to the end level. Now customer doesn't know that what temperature it was stored in the central stock point and at what temperature it is stored at the retail level, whether it is a cold chain. So
I think you have asked Sapna. So Sapna, without wasting my time, I think you can really look at this whole question of mapping because whether it is a auto supply chain where you need to map 18,000 tier of suppliers, or it's a pharma supply chain mapping on the pharmaceutical, that's the purchase side, or mapping any supply chain last miles. And pharma and food becomes very, very critical. So what are your views on it and how one really, don't talk about what we can do a little this thing.
Ultimately, what I understood is what you're looking for is to have the visibility from the point of production to the point of today the visibility is available up to points or to the stockist point. That's the visibility that you have available. Important is because with the digital transformation, the way bring a platform where you have information, you have content aggregated at one place. A platform where you have users, your stockist also has a user, wherein you can also kind of set certain rules. You can also set certain guidelines and monitor those guidelines, whether they are following that or not. They are supposed to provide information. They should be providing information of what is happening after they get the goods, where exactly it is moving. Is it reaching the point of where the demand is, or it's just lying somewhere where it's not even getting consumed? I'll talk from map perspective. Last mile points also gives you a power to analyze where the potential is, where exactly a certain class of population lives, where exactly your retailers are, retailers who are, let's say, keeping are in different types of doctors depending on the kind of products that you are dealing with. If all this information is there onto a single platform for you to analyze, to plan, so anything which can be predicted can be solved. That's what we truly believe. If you can predict basis this this information that where exactly the demand is going to be. And then if you get the other stakeholders, the next tier of stakeholders like stockists, etc., on the same platform to add their share, their pie of information also onto the same system, and then going to various stock your product. I mean, I can visualize that it can all be done using your maps technology, your IoT technology, certain sensors, plus the analytics. When I say analytics, demand and supply on itself. When you get a single window, other verticals also. So it is doable. It's not something which is not achievable. I'm as an industry, but a step in this direction can actually make make things happen.
Sapna, I'll just correct you. Basically, today we have around 23 CFAs across the country. We have around 3,000 to 5,000 across the country, between 5 lakhs to 6 lakhs retailer. So you understand where is the entire stock lying at this 5 lakhs to 6 lakhs stock point across the country. And every stock is basically kind of stand from pharma space. It will be much better because you might have gone to some other industry and they have
FMCG have been
they have a very set distribution network. They have one distributor. It's a very planned way kind of thing where you can whereas in pharma there are totally a very complexity in distribution networking. Understand that in spite of having stockists.
Masood, we have understood your question, and I think we are also running out of time. I think let me put this perspective not only from your perspective or MapmyIndia perspective, from a larger perspective.
Yeah.
I think what Sapna said, you also say FMCG has Santis in each and every village, 6 lakhs 34 villages in this country. There could be 3 Santis, that is sub-retail systems, which is even complex than the pharma. If you look at cement, if you have been traveling this country, you will find that Ultratech cement board everywhere. So, the challenges in similar. Lama Safa for them as a consultant in certain place. They have automotive supply chain to the tire of 50,000. Mapping means what is the temperature at which the things are stored, how many things are stored there, it's visible, what is the frequency of your distribution. Now, my biggest challenge to mapping, biggest challenge to technology, I feel is this. We believe in different technologies. We operate in silos in organization. We don't, though single window, yes, one provider can provide a single window, but there's so much complexity. Our APOs, they're just converting them into some kind of, AI ML based platforms, but they're not tackling the issue of mapping. Some of them are in mapping. Some of them are purely into analytics and ML and AI. I think even technology is like your logistics, marketing, finance, new product. They're all fragmented. What is needed is a very strong collaboration between all these technologies. A platform which takes into account the advantages and competitive edge of all this, but people who operate in silos, who operate in their will get, but they will also get, because I've been seeing technology as a professor. Every time I hear technology is going to make things visible. Everything remained the same. I was doing a training program in Hindustan Unilever 3 years back. I asked their 38 demand planners, I asked them, what is the outcome that you have from your APO? They all smiled. I said, do you know what defines your APO? All smiles. I think I had asked a similar question. Nobody knows. Gaurav, you realize it's a blindfold. If this is how we go, then visibility is zero. Visibility. So what happens if my last mile sits there, if my other mile sits, I get data. I get a centralized big data. I can use this data using deep learning and machine learning and make very, very strong insight into my planning. And planning doesn't mean forecasting. Planning means assigning tasks to the whole supply chain end to end, as Vijay was talking about. And maps are the one which can actually visibly map them into visuals, analytics, visualization. And other technology can bring in a very smoother part of the supply chain. Where does the truck lie? And hence, the whole control power concept cannot be logistics control power, a control tower, or procurement control. It has to be supply chain and end-to-end value control tower. And I think that happens, map will become a very essential part of it. Thank you very much. And I think we had a good discussion. And thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, Masood. Thanks, Vijay. And thanks, Sapna, for being part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh ji, for wonderful engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you, Vijay, Sapna, Masood, and Gaurav for taking your time out and spending it with us and discussing with us the challenges of last mile in pharmaceutical supply chains. I also take this opportunity to thank my sponsors, MapmyIndia, also my Plus Technologies, Guba Cold Storage, IPA, and my media partners, Pharma Utility. And we now move to the last segment of the day, which is essentially leading from where Masood stopped. Keeping cool, managing cold chains in the pharmaceutical industry. And to discuss this issue with us, I have Samit Jain, Managing Director, Plus Advanced Technologies. Kiran Gubba, CEO and Managing Director, Gubba Storage. Anand Garg, Vice President, Head India Supply Chain, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. And Ryan Vegas, Consultant, Pharma and Healthcare Supply Chains. I would like to start from where Masood left off in his discussions. He was talking about the pharma industry can control it up to probably the distributor, and from the distributor to the chemist, and from the chemist to your house, probably it's lying out there for 300 odd days in a non-temperature controlled environment. And we live in a country in which the shoes that we wear environment, while the medicines that we have to take are stored in a very hot and humid structure. So I think it's the nature of our the way we are structured ourselves that however, things are not all that bad. I was just reading a report by JLL and they will 20% by 2025. And unfortunately, most of it will be going towards storage of potatoes rather than storage of medicines. And that again is a reality that we are faced with. The pandemic has had a profound effect on temperature controlled supply chains. A year and a half back or 2 years back, most of us were focused on inventory levels, controlling that, logistics. But today, thanks to the vaccine, and I think when Pfizer announced its vaccine, which needs to be kept at a -70, first time we woke up and said that do we have the cold chain that can transport a Pfizer vaccine to all distant parts of the country? And therefore, cold became the new normal. And cold chain management has become a major concern for pharmaceutical companies. To maintain a secure cold storage, from storage to handling to transportation to right up to the point of sale, I see the number of products which will require cold chain will increase, and so will the regulatory interest in cold chain handling. So we are going to see renewed interest in cold chains in both in terms of the requirement from the public as well as from the government. And therefore, we are seeing something that's very interesting for cold chains. And therefore, we will move from last mile, which was what they were discussing last, to ensuring that that last mile is done in the way it has to be done under proper